Okay. I'm going to do my best to share my screen. Is that up there? Right. Okay. Um, Great. So, yeah, my name is Dave Shellnutt. I am a lawyer at the Biking Lawyer LLP. Really thank the Ottawa Bicycle Club for having me here today. What you folks do in getting people on bikes, and I see the upcoming event, the Rideau Lakes, is really impressive. So, love to be chatting with you before you all hit the road for that, en masse, and sort of equip you with the information that you're never going to use, but if you do have to, you have it in your back pocket. Um, yeah, this is a presentation on what to do if the unfortunate occurs and you are involved in a collision, or you witness a fellow cyclist, a fellow cycling community member involved in a collision. And this is it's a legal presentation, but it's derived from not only professional experience through the stories of my clients, but through my own experience. In May 2019, I was cycling in a painted bike lane, and a driver, without indicating, turned right and right hooked me, and I broke my wrist and my elbow. So a lot of this comes from that experience. And I did some things right and I did some things wrong. And so we want to share that with you today so that you folks can do the right things should you need to. Okay. All right. So I'm going to explain the law a bit here. But the law on paper is different than it is sometimes applied. And that can be inconsistencies, based on your gender, race, economic status, and these kind of things. Different insurance companies behave differently towards people. So things I'm going to tell you is the best information you can have, but there could be hiccups and bumps along the road, and things like that. Um, it is not a presentation on the rules of the road and and what to do in a police interaction. But if you check out our social media accounts, at thebikinglawyer.ca, we got a ton of information on like these rules of the road and things like this. And our blog is a veritable library of how-to guides for cyclists. We've got hit and run guides. We've got pothole claim guides. Um, the spring commuting, my business partner and biking lawyer Joel Zanata just did the spring commuting guide, top 10 safety tips. So check that out if you want to sort of deep dive into our reservoir of information. Um, yeah. And the reason I don't focus so much on the rights of, well, it is important. You should know it, and especially your obligations under the Highway Traffic Act as a vehicle. I take the advice of, I used to work at this big law firm downtown, and the managing partner of that firm, this big time lawyer guy. Well, he used to be a bike courier before he was a lawyer, and I shared an I shared a hallway beside him, and I would always come in the morning commuting to work, and so hot. I'm like, this guy cut me off, and I had the right of way, and I would always tell him that I was in the right and all this stuff, and I was. But Brian said to me, he's like, Dave, you're right, just don't be dead right. So all your rights that you have under the Highway Traffic Act, you know, um, you have those, but your safety is priority all the time. We've got a great article on road violence and road rage, and how to report dangerous drivers, because often, you feel that anger of being mistreated on the road, cut off, or nearly hit, and you want to say something to the driver, and that can escalate terribly. So we caution that as well. Yeah. So we'll move away from the rights, and we will go to what you need to know if a crash happens. And that's because they do happen. Like I said, happened to me. The number one thing, your health and safety. Get safe, assess your injuries, and seek medical attention. I got hit. I was able to walk and get off the road, and I took a moment to breathe and assess my injuries, and that was good. What wasn't good is the adrenaline was pumping, and I didn't want to be injured. None of us do, and I was in shock. And so while I took down the driver's information, I then left, and I biked home. And when I got home, the shock wore off, and the adrenaline. I realized soon thereafter that I was not okay. And I had to take myself to the emergency room where I said I was diagnosed with the wrist fracture and the elbow fracture. So, I did get safe and assess my injuries. I just failed to do that properly because I'm not a doctor and I didn't want to be injured. So I didn't immediately seek medical attention, and I should have. I should have called for an ambulance. You don't know. This is something that I hear so frequently. Cyclists, in shock or embarrassed that they crashed or got into a collision and leave
Oh,
the scene. Um, really, make sure you get someone down there to check you out, a professional. Number two, if you're able to, or if you can't get a witness or a bystander, take pictures. Take pictures of the driver's car. Take pictures of the license plate. Take pictures of his or her license. Take pictures of their insurance information. And if you can, photos of the scene. Photo and video evidence is critical. And I can again give you a story from mine. When he hit me, and so my handlebars went into the back side of his car, and put a big black line down his rear bumper towards the passenger door. And I took a picture of that. And he was really nice on scene. He was like, "Can I help you?" Blah blah blah. And I said no, and left, and then reported it later to the police. And so did he. And years later, when we were in court, we were in our court case about it. He pulled out some pictures and he said, "This guy from a stop just drove into my, biked in my car at low speed, and nothing happened." And the picture that he presented to police and showed us that day, his back bumper had been cleaned off. And so thankfully, I had my photos to show that yes, there was a high speed impact. Um, so take pictures, really important. Um, Number three is call 911, get authorities down there, and report the crash. In Toronto and in other municipalities, the police are obligated to go down to the scene of a crash between a pedestrian and or cyclist and a motor vehicle. And I'm pretty sure that's the case in Ottawa. Now, a lot of the time they will say, "Well, are you injured?" And if you say no, they either won't come or they'll take a long, long time. And so, what I always advise people is, because, like me, you don't know unless you're a medical doctor, to say, "I'm not sure. I was just hit by a motor vehicle and I'm in shock. Please come down." Period. And so that's what I encourage. And get an ambulance down there. Get someone to say that you are. Um, get someone down there and see a medical professional. I always say it's better to go wait in the ER for 3 hours than to go home, realize you're injured, go to your family doctor, get a referral for an X-ray. The next day you go to the X-ray, then the next day wait for the answer, and then go back to your family doctor. So even though waiting in an emergency room for 3 or 4 hours may seem like a real headache, the longer path of not doing that is less than ideal. Um, so yeah, um, we have created these. We have an online report which helps you roadside gather critical information that you need. We also have plastic crash cards, which I'm hopefully going to send a bunch to the Ottawa Bicycle Club. But you can email us with your address, info at thebikinglawyer.ca, and we'll send one for you in the mail. On the one side, it's got all the things you need to take down, either for yourself or for a witness or for another cyclist at the scene of the crash. And on the other side, this is the really key part, is right at the roadside, you can QR code to an online form, enter in those 5 things: license plate, um, driver's name, etc., and upload a photo of the vehicle, and it emails right to you. So this is really a critical safety thing we've created for cyclists in Ontario, and based off of my experience and that of our clients. So yeah, that's the steps for if a crash happens. Immediately post crash, get safe, get pictures, get medical attention. And after you've gone through all that, you have access. You can go down 2 roads as a cyclist who's been involved in a collision with a motor vehicle. And the first road is one that a lot of folks who just cycle and don't have an automobile don't know about. And it's frequently when I do these Know Your Rights presentations, it's the one thing I hear over and over again, that people are just unaware of. Whether or not you have car insurance, if you're involved in a collision with a motor vehicle, the insurance of the driver applies immediately for no fault accident benefits to help you. Now, if you do have car insurance, like myself, I had car insurance at the time, but I was hit on my bicycle. Funnily enough, my car insurance pays for my benefits. And so in either case, whether it's the driver's or yours, they pay for things like healthcare and medical rehab benefits, chiro, physio, massage, and in a lot of cases, most cases, we find that the trauma of being hit by a motor vehicle impacts cyclists psychologically, and so this care is afforded under that as well. Um, there's sort of different tiers of care. And the first tier is if you've suffered a sprain or a strain, your general whiplash or soft tissue injuries, you have access to $3,500 in treatment. And the goal right away, no, whether or not you're at fault or not. And the goal of that is to get people to get a little bit of help, a little bit of medical care, recover, and get back on the bike. And that way you can leave this thing behind you. If you have a more serious injury, like a broken wrist, like I had, up to sort of very serious injuries, you get access to up to $65,000 in care. Now, if you are severely injured, losing a limb or paraplegic, you go into the catastrophically impaired category, and that's care up to $1 million. You also, under the no fault accident benefits regime, can get lost wages to help you if you got to be off work for a bit of time. If you are a caregiver for your mom or something like that, then you can get support for that person as well. You can also get in-home care for yourself. So, unfortunately, we see a lot of cyclists with knee injuries from collisions with motor vehicles. And so like doing things around the home is really difficult. So these benefits cover that kind of care sort of the day you get out of the hospital. So this is a really important set of benefits to know that you have access to, either through your own car insurance or that of the driver that hit you. It seems crazy, I know, that me cycling, not in my vehicle, my own car insurance paid for my rehab benefits for the next 2 years, over $20,000. But that's just the regime that's been set up, and it's been set up to get people to recover, and so that they don't have to pursue litigation or a lawsuit. And that is our next topic. The government and the insurance industry have made it very difficult for cyclists to and pedestrians or people involved in motor vehicle collisions to sue for injuries. In Ontario, if you You break your clavicle, someone else is completely negligent. Maybe they were drinking and driving, but you heal fully and you have no residual impacts or anything to your daily life. You cannot file a claim. Um, the way the law is set up is that you have to suffer a permanent and serious impairment. And now that's an injury that lasts in some form, whether it be chronic pain or mobility issues for forever. It impacts your life and your work. So it's not like the U.S. You don't just sue for everything, and that's kind of why there's this two-tiered system or two roads you go down. And the first road is to help you recover so that you don't need to have a lawsuit. That's the idea of it, anyways. Um, Now, if you didn't recover from that clavicle injury, or you have something more serious like an interarticular injury, then you can sue the driver if they were negligent and caused you to be injured. Um, you can sue for things like your pain and suffering, past, present, future income losses, healthcare costs above and beyond the accident benefits that's provided, and other expenses. Um, One thing that you'll find in our blog is an article titled, "It's Always the Car's Fault." And so this is something we want to get across to cyclists. Under the Highway Traffic Act, there's a provision that applies a reverse onus. And what that means is that a pedestrian or a cyclist involved in a collision with a motor vehicle, the driver of the motor vehicle is presumed to be at fault unless they can prove otherwise. And that's because that's a recognition that we are vulnerable road users, and sort of and at a disadvantage. So that's always there. So even if you think, hey, I was in a crosswalk on my bike, or I didn't have a light on, you are not automatically determined to be at fault. The police may give you a crosswalk ticket, but that doesn't mean you're not entitled to a claim. Um, so you really ought to remember the reverse onus and speak to a lawyer. Um, yeah, the all of this, as I said at the beginning, there's the law and there's the reality. There are systemic differences and challenges. Certain groups will have more difficulty than others reporting a crash to police, have trouble navigating the healthcare system. Some folks have a distrust of lawyers and the legal system. And others have different responsibilities. A parent caring for multiple children, and the sole breadwinner, and mom at home too. It just can't take time off work and has to work through injuries. So all of this is sort of uh, with a recognition that it'll apply differently. We recommend, in terms of reporting to police and navigating the healthcare system, if those things at all concern you or concern a friend of yours that's involved in this situation, use the buddy system. Always have a family member or friend there when speaking to police or medical professionals, just for an extra set of eyes and someone who can help advocate for you. Um, a distrust of lawyers. Well, what I would recommend is, who does the community trust? Who are people that are making positive changes in your community, and show an authenticity and commitment? You go with those folks. Go with people who are recommended by your friends. And the issues with insurance, that's a way to avoid that, is to get a lawyer on board nice and early. Um, yeah. Yeah. That is the law bit I want to throw at you. Honestly, like, that's a lot of information, and we can provide the slides to the club. But and the crash cards, like I said. But just know that if the unfortunate occurs, reach out. Um, we most personal injury lawyers provide free consultations. We're dedicated to the cycling community, and there's no silly question. We want people to be aware of their rights, and entitlements, and happy to always take calls and emails from cyclists. If you don't have a claim, we will tell you that and advise you of the best course of action to proceed. Get your $3,500 in minor injury guideline benefits and get back on the bike. You don't want to work with me for 2 years, and you won't be able to pursue a claim anyways. That kind of thing. Anyway, would love to chat with folks. Does that make sense, Emily?
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. That was great. Just quickly want to throw out, as OBC riders, if you're on a member-led ride or an OBC-led ride, the reporting for an accident will be slightly different because there are certain steps that the club needs to follow, of course, with the Ontario Cycling Association. That's all found on our website, those guidelines, but that's all done by the ride leader, those steps that need to be followed. But like if you're, I guess, out alone, no connection to OBC, like that all falls in place perfectly. So thank you so much. I'm gonna stop the recording, and if anyone has any questions, jump right in.